For 14 years in a row, we sold more than 3 times the number of properties as the big firms that we were competing with. We were just a local popcorn stand competing against regional, national, and global firms, and we kicked their ass every day. 14 years in a row, 3Xing them. Proud of that.
Welcome to Industrial Advisors. You've got myself, Matt McGregor, and Bill Condon. And honestly, this is probably the first time we have 2 guests that need no introduction, but we're going to introduce them. Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Group, world-renowned coach, top coach in the CRE space, author, keynote speaker, unbelievable person, friend, and in my opinion, the best coach in the world. Welcome to the show, Rod. I think this is your second or third time on the show. And Bob Knakal, the most famous broker in the world, no question about it. Keynote speaker, author, seller of buildings in New York City, by far the number one person in his category for a very, very long time. Met Bob a few years ago at Massimo Con, unbelievable speaker and a friend of mine as well. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you so much, Matt. Great to be with you and Bill, and always great to be with my good buddy, Rod.
Excellent. So you guys wrote a book together recently and launched it. There it is, Selling Buildings, Maximizing Prices and Profits in Commercial Real Estate. Congratulations, gentlemen.
It was a blast.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you.
Yes. And tell us a little bit about why you wrote the book together. First of all, what was that conversation? Who started it? How did it come to be?
BK, you could take that.
Well, Matt, we've been talking about it for a while, and Rod, now this I think was your 5th book. So
Yep.
he's written a number of books, and I figured how better to do it, and rather than just write the book in one voice, we wrote it in 2. So Rod kind of looks at everything. The book is essentially my journey over 40 years in commercial real estate, selling buildings, and the different inflection points and trials and tribulations. We really pull back the curtain and go through the good, the bad, and the ugly and give my perspective on it. And I think there are a lot of lessons in there for investors. We tell a lot of deal stories that are very indicative of what was happening in the broader market at the time. And then Rod adds his perspective on what brokers can get out of this. So we thought it was a very interesting book. Some people refer to it as textbook light. Some refer to it as kind of a crime thriller of real estate. But it's a little bit of everything. But most of all, it is a summary of a lot of different lessons learned, most the hard way, over the course of 40 years selling buildings in New York City.
I can imagine the stories that you have over the years selling buildings in New York City and more than anyone else. So,
and by the way, New York City is by far Bill's favorite city. And he always says, if I could start my career any other place, I'd be selling office buildings in New York City. So a little
there you go. The stories are plentiful, no doubt about that. We tried to keep the stories to the G, PG, and a couple of R-rated stories, but that's about as far as we go.
I've done quite a few deals in New Jersey, not a ton in New York, but some nice warehouse deals in New Jersey. So, Bob, talk a little bit about explain luck versus discipline, because I know you've done that in the past.
Number one, luck is very, very important. I think, and I go into detail about how lucky I feel I've been in my career. I also think that the harder you work, the luckier you get. But luck is important. But discipline really is the backbone of what a broker needs to succeed. I always say I see 3 characteristics very routinely in the folks that get to the top of our business. One is expertise in a very, very thin slice of the market so they can know everything about it, but big enough to make a good living. 2, passion. You have to love it. You can't work hard enough and stick with it if you don't love it. And then being able to use discipline. And I think the best way to illustrate how important discipline is to think there are so many things we do in the brokerage industry that are not very glamorous, but are critically important. Making your calls, writing your content, sending your emails, doing your research, doing the things, the basic fundamental things. And it's very, very important to make sure that the proper fundamental things. But we often say in the office that we have to pound the rock. And pounding the rock is the stonecutter's creed. And as an illustration of that, stonecutter comes into the shop in the morning, sits in front of a big block of stone, takes the mallet and whacks the thing 99 times, nothing's happened. 100th one, boom, rock splits in half. And to the casual observer, they look at that and say, oh, that 100th one must have been different somehow. Maybe it was a different mallet, or maybe the strike was harder, or maybe it was from a different angle. But the stonecutter knows that's not the case. The 100th one was the same as the 99 that came before it. It's just the 99 that came before it allowed that 100th one to work. And in the same way, whether you're making calls or sending out your letters or meeting with people or doing your networking, if you're doing fundamentally the correct things, ultimately that rock is going to split in half. But you have to be able to use discipline to keep at it, even when you don't see any results. But if you're doing the right things, eventually that will work for you.
Well
yeah,
said, Bob.
I really like how you combine that with the passion part, because you can have discipline and go do a bunch of different things. But if you're not actually passionate about that phone call or about writing that letter, about meeting with that person for lunch, the client or potential client's going to see right through that, right? So you're more effective when you combine those two things.
Yeah, look, Rod will be the first to tell you that when times get tough, a lot of brokers get out of the business. And, it very routinely, the people who don't truly love it don't have the stick-to-itiveness to make it through the tough times, and they just get out. And, inevitably those times are going to get better. The market always has been, is, and always will be cyclical. So you have to make sure that you're around to take advantage of those good times. And if you don't really love it, the bad times will grind you up and you'll drop out.
That's right. And Rod, in the book, it's interesting because it's a little bit of a memoir and then coaching playbook. So How did you, in writing this, putting that together, how did you come up with a balance between storytelling and a tactical guide in your world of coaching?
Yeah, like Bill and Matt, I know you listen to so many books. I never found a book where there was a coach-player co-written book. Imagine if Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan wrote a book. Not that I'm comparing myself to Phil Jackson or BK to Michael Jordan, although he is the GOAT. So I thought it'd be interesting to say, how can we show those two perspectives working with one another? Because that's the relationship that goes much deeper than just Bob's memoir or tactical approach. So we found the balance. We found the balance for two things. First, yes, be your memoir. Second, be valuable to the reader in regards to tactical approaches, but also BK's telling investors, this is exactly what you need to do when you sell a building to maximize your prices. And I'm sharing with brokers, this is exactly what you need to do when you're maximizing the profits in your commissions. So I think it was a good blend.
Yeah, that must have been tough to blend that out. By the way, how long did it take you guys to write the book collectively?
It took over, first of all, we used no AI and, we just did not.
That's right. I read that.
I would not do impressive. That. But we did about almost 3 years, 2.5 years.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to write your last book alone? Like, is it a lot longer because you're writing with somebody
Dominators
else?
Was so much. Dominators was our sequel to the first book, Brokers Who Dominate. So that was actually pretty simple. That one took probably 8 months. My first book with Brokers Who Dominate, that took me 2 years as well. And the funny thing is, in my first book, about luck versus discipline, a mentor of mine named Jerry Anderson said, you must have Bob Knakal in the book. And I said, who the hell's Bob Knakal?
Is that why you then sought him out?
Yeah, that's
interesting.
13, 14 years ago.
Wow. Excellent. And Bob, you mentioned uncovering 22 boxes of memorabilia, even tax returns. What was it like rifling through all that? And how did you then kind of shape the narrative of what to use?
Yeah, well, you know what, Matt? It was, I did save boxes and boxes of stuff, all of which recently has been scanned and is on my website, bobknakal.com. So you can go back and see market reports from the 1990s if you felt like wasting some time. But no, what I think it was more trying to remember all of the different twists and turns, because really, what do people get the most benefit out of is understanding when someone is faced with a decision. And you could go left or you could go right. What are the considerations for going left? What are the considerations for going right? Which way did you go? And how did it turn out? And when you're met with similar inflection points, what's the decision-making process and that kind of thing? So a lot of going through the old materials were stirring up memories of different inflection points that we had and different twists in the road and almost going bankrupt and almost closing down. And, when we filled all our territories in Manhattan, do we start doing other service lines or do we increase geographically? And first we increased geographically. Then we had all of New York City filled with investment sales territories. Do we go to Boston or Philly or Chicago, or do we do more service lines? And we decided to get into more service lines. So a bunch of different things along the way that happened, and hiring a bunch of people and firing a bunch of people. And when do we grow? When do we not grow? How did we grow? What was the margin that we got from hiring people to take functionality off our hands so we could go sell more? All the things that really encapsulate a growth of a business, of a brokerage business, and the different hurdles that you faced and how you overcame them and what decisions you made and why and how those decisions turned out. And again, some of them were not great decisions. We made a lot of mistakes. And in fact, early on, made hundreds of mistakes because we did most things by trial and error, which is a lesson out of the book. Seek out the counsel and advice of experienced people, and it'll save you from making a lot of mistakes. But Paul and I didn't do that. So, it really was a very introspective look at all the twists and turns over a 40-year career.
Yeah, that's awesome. And given the experience that both you guys have, and I'd ask you both this question. So Bob and Rod, Bob, you've sold a lot in New York and around the East Coast. What advice would both of you guys, and Rod, you're exposed to thousands and thousands of top brokers that you're coaching, on a daily basis and that your team is coaching. So what are some of the advice that you guys would have to brokers as it relates to just continuing to grind their way through the business?
Yeah, well, I'll take the first one of that. And I just want to give one quick correction. And it's just because it is what it is. Bob hasn't sold
only New York.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Based on our understanding and working with so many brokers across now the globe, Bob has sold more brokers than anybody else that we've heard of or know than in the world. I mean, it's beyond incredible. Bob, what's the total number right now?
2,358 as of last week.
58. Okay, so, and given a 40-year career, do the weeks, do all the math majors, that's more than one building a week. More than one building a week over 40 years. So just a little perspective. So what did it take to do that? Well, first, Bob talked about it. Look, you talk about discipline and passion. I love those words, but I think the number one word in everything, including sales, is conviction. You must have total conviction to the craft of whatever you're doing. If you're going to be a broker, be the best broker in the world. That's simple. I think what you see from top producers, they don't do brokerage. They are brokers. And it's a huge difference. It's just huge. It's not a transaction. It's a lifestyle. And there are other disciplines, you can call it dominate factors, the 8 traits of success. But yeah, I'd say, look, you got to have the total conviction, regardless of the market cycles. It's not the market that makes you successful. It's you that makes you successful. You just got to understand that. BK?
Yeah, I think it's really about expertise and really understanding. And as Rod said, you have to love it. You have to want to be great at it. And, I've had a couple of inflection points as well. We sold Massey Knakal in 2014. We sold it for a lot of money. It gave me an opportunity to be introspective about what I wanted to do at that point. Did I want to slow down a little bit? Did I want to spend more time in the Cayman Islands, which is my favorite vacation spot? Did I want to start buying property? And it occurred to me, look, I know how to be a broker. I enjoy being a broker. I'm going to keep being a broker. And now, I've gotten to the point, I'm 63 years old. Subsequent to the sale of the company, I spent 10 years knocking around at C&W and JLL, which really was like the 10 years was like the dark ages of my career. I'm now a year and a half into having my own company. And, again, it's kind of introspective. I said, what am I going to do? Am I going to slow down, start to enjoy life more? They go enjoy life. I enjoy life. I love my life. I love being a broker. And instead of slowing down, I'm speeding up. I want to continue. I think I've got at least 20 or 30 more good years in me selling buildings. And you know what? You only live once. I want to do this better than anybody else has ever done it. And I keep trying to improve every single day. I still work with Rod. We do our call every Saturday morning. If there's some kid in Idaho that knows how to do something better than the rest of us know how to do it, I want to know about it as soon as possible. And I tell you, I am having more fun now than I ever have. And unlike athletes who just because of the inevitability of age, you can't possibly perform as well when you're older as you did when you were in your prime. I think I've never performed better. I recently closed my first $1 billion transaction, being hired to sell another $1 billion transaction. We're getting institutional work. My efficacy in the Knakal map room is yesterday we won our 56th exclusive out of 57 pitches. I never would have thought anything like that was possible, but I want to push the limits.
That's in the map room, right?
Better than anybody else.
That 56 out of 57 is in the map room?
In the map room, right.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I remember Massimo. I lost 3 pitches in the past year. One was the one that we lost in the map room. The other 2 I lost because I couldn't get the client into the map room.
Right.
And I will not pitch a client today unless they come into the map room.
With one loss, only one loss. That's a good philosophy for sure.
That is an incredible percentage.
Yeah.
I think it's really fascinating though. And it's true with both of you guys. You both have continued to reach the very top of your space, right? And just a continuous mindset of like, how do I learn? How do I be better? How do I continue to push and go next level is really inspiring from both of you.
Yeah, I don't know how BK feels, but I don't feel I'm at the top. Now, is there any coach in my space?
No.
No.
There's not. I mean, you are. Yeah.
You are at the top here.
Right. The question I ask the most myself almost every time is, what's next? What's next? And that's the problem with that. And you all do this. You're so freaking good at what you do. You are both at the top of your game as industrial advisors for some of the biggest organizations in the world. You both are. But we tend not to celebrate the win as much as wonder what else is out there, right? And that's what it is.
That's the curse of who we all are, right?
It is.
That's right. Well, that is going to be my closing question for you, but I got one more before that, and this is on tech. So, Rod, I'm going to go to you. You previously discussed how AI will change the CRE space, but not grit, and I couldn't agree with that more. How do you see the role of tech evolving brokerage, say, in the next 36 months?
Well, first of all, I'll share with you right now, my AI agent that we all have access to is getting quotes for new landscapers and submitting the forms on the web for me and getting to call me back and talking to my AI agent, and we're getting it all toward. And I'm not doing anything. I mean, This is just an example of what the tools that exist today. That's a $20 a month tool, by the way, called ChatGPT. But yeah, look, we are about to launch on, depending on this month. The end of this month, we're launching to the public for the first time our internal member-only AI marketing and prospecting platform. We now have AI working with brokers to answer texts from investors, tenants, landlords, whatever, with text conversations, phone conversations on incoming. It's illegal now to do outgoing based on the FCC regulations as of now. So look, Matt, it's going to change the entire game. And just like the Great Recession of 2008 and the pandemic of 2020, this wave is going to affect the number of brokers around in the next 3 to 5 years. And it's going to, I believe personally, although not great for my business, it's going to dramatically reduce the actual number of agents. But the cream of the crops, the Knakals, you will always be needed because you will all have more expertise and just a human touch. That's what I think.
I couldn't agree more. It is fascinating. Obviously, we try to be that advanced tech team, and it's hard to keep up with all the changes. It is amazing. And that new iOS that's coming out on the phone is going to change cold calling, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go to the last question here. what's next for both of you? You hit this earlier. What's the big picture? You've touched on it. If you could say one thing outside, promoting the book for the next 6 months or whatever you're going to do, what's the next big thing for each of you, whether that's personal or professional?
Yeah, well, the next thing, I just want to keep growing BKREA. We have a philosophy that, for my whole career, prospecting and the approach to the business was to go a mile wide and an inch deep and try to get in the way of as much stuff as possible. We've completely inverted that now. And the philosophy is go an inch wide and a mile deep and really entrench ourselves with folks that we really want to work with. And then secondly, probably the legacy of my career that I'm most proud of. And, the MK days were a great time. For 14 years in a row, we sold more than 3 times the number of properties as the big firms that we were competing with. We were just a local popcorn stand competing against regional, national, and global firms. And we kicked their ass every day, 14 years in a row, 3Xing them. Proud of that. We started the company with just 2 of us and a secretary in a small office and grew it to 250 people, sold it for a lot of money. Proud of that. But by far the legacy I'm most proud of is that today in the New York City investment sales world, there are 32 companies or divisions of companies that are owned by or run by people that learn the business at Massey Knakal. And in the same way, I have now a bunch of young, hardworking, smart, aggressive folks that I'm teaching the business to. And I know without a doubt that there are people working with me right now that are going to own their own company someday or run the division of a company someday. They're great people. And to the extent I can play a small part in making their lives tangibly better and encourage them and inspire them and get them to get the most out of their life, that is the thing that I will always be the most proud of. And so I want to continue that.
Awesome. Well said.
And for me, it's simple. The last 6 months and for the next 90 days, all I've been focusing on is, we've had the good fortune, and you both, Bob and Matt, this. We've had the good fortune of putting together live events that have been considered the best events in the history of brokerage. But they've been small. They've been 400 people, 500 people. So on November 19th, we're going to produce and present the Global Commercial Real Estate Broker Virtual Summit that go out to the world. It's going to be absolutely incredible. It's going to be, the studio in Vegas is phenomenal. It's where Tony Robbins gives his large global presentations. For the grace of God, I have people like Bob Knakal and Matt McGregor joining us to be there to speak and present. But yeah, that's my next big thing. That I think this is, you're too young. Well, Matt, you're not too young, made this. Evel Knievel jumped the Grand Canyon. Did he really jump it? I don't think so. But he said he was going to jump it. And yes, he can burn. This is the point. So this is my Grand Canyon. This is my big jump to say I could do this. We'll see what happens. I don't think we'll crash and burn, but I think it's going to be spectacular.
It's going to be spectacular. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you there, Bob. And gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure having both of you. Great book. Great. Best of luck with the book. I'm sure it's selling like crazy. And where can people find it?
We exclusively have it on Amazon.com, so everyone can get it as fast as possible. We made that decision. So Amazon.com, Selling Buildings by Bob Knakal and Rod Santomassimo.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. You're true legends and innovators in our space, and appreciate you sharing your incredible insight with us and the listeners. So thank you so much.
Hey, Bill and Matt, thank you so much for having us on. It's great. And Matt, I look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
Yes, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. We'll see you then. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, guys.
That's a wrap, gentlemen. Thanks a lot.